Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for listening. Hello, hello, hello. This is the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I am your host, Nelson E. Brown, and thanks again for tuning in. I hope you all are having a really, really great summer. It's extremely hot outside, but I can definitely tell that people are taking advantage of the opportunity to go out in certain instances in order to have fun. I know that a lot of people are still traveling. A lot of people are still taking vacations and spending time with their family members, and their loved ones, and their friends. And people are really taking the opportunity to gather because we've all had gathered amongst one another or have been in the same setting for a very long time. So I can definitely see that people are excited about summer and having the opportunity to vacation and spend time with their families and do things that they haven't been able to do throughout the course of the pandemic. Now that restrictions are being lifted in many parts of our country, from a local standpoint, from each and every state, and even nationally. So I can definitely notice that. Tonight we have a very, very special and sentimental broadcast. We have a mathematician, and we also have an entrepreneur who identifies with the disability community. His name is Mr. Christopher Powell, and he's going to talk to us about his journey to becoming a mathematician and an entrepreneur, and also his journey in terms of how he's been able to speak out for the disability community as he talks about his disability, the cerebral palsy. But before we have him on for the second half of the show, from 6:30 to 7 p.m., we're going to talk about the disability community for the first part of the show. Now, I'm not sure if you all remember, but I did feature another member of the disability community earlier this year, Miss Tracy Garner. So if you haven't had the opportunity to watch that show and that broadcast, please feel free to do that when you have the time to learn a little bit more about the disability community and the ways in which we can uplift them and encourage them and support them in their endeavors. But I read an article from the CDC about the disability community and the ways in which we identify them and how we can uplift them and support them, in their journeys as well. So Mr. Powell is going to be joining us for the second half of the show to talk about how he's been able to conquer obstacles and how he's been able to set goals and achieve his dreams of becoming a mathematician and entrepreneur, and how he's been able to talk about his journey and share his journey with others. Even with his struggle with cerebral palsy, he's still been able to accomplish many things. So we're going to have an opportunity to learn more about that later on in the show today. But I'm going to read two passages from the CDC, from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, about disability inclusion and about how disability impacts all of us. So, disability inclusion is the first article that I'm going to read to you all about the disability community and why it's so important for us to recognize them and support them. So, disability inclusion. It says, what is disability inclusion? According to the CDC, it says that including people with disabilities in everyday activities and encouraging them to have roles similar to their peers who do not have a disability is disability inclusion. This involves more than simply encouraging people. It requires making sure that adequate policies and practices are in effect in a community or organization. Inclusion should lead to increased participation in socially expected life roles and activities, such as being a student, worker, friend, community member, patient, spouse, partner, or parent. Socially expected activities may also include engaging in social activities and using public resources such as transportation and libraries, moving about within communities, receiving adequate health care, having relationships, and enjoying other day-to-day activities. Now, these are some of the points that have been outlined by the CDC in terms of what it means to make sure that the disability community, members of the disability community are not suffering from any type of discrimination, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in any type of structure. It's important for us to realize how important they are. So I'm going to read a little bit more from both articles so that you guys can generate some thoughts and ideas about what it means to make sure that we all treat the disability community equally. So it says that disability inclusion and the health of people with disabilities. So this is a separate section in the article. It says that disability inclusion allows for people with disabilities to take advantage of the benefits of the same health promotion and prevention activities experienced by people who do not have a disability. Some examples of these activities include education and counseling programs that promote physical activity, improve nutrition, or reduce the use of tobacco, alcohol, or drugs, and blood pressure and cholesterol assessment during annual health exams and screening for illnesses such as cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And it also means that including people with disabilities in these activities begins with identifying and eliminating barriers to their participation. And I want you all to think about why that's important as I read the rest of this passage. It says that disability affects approximately 61 million, or nearly 1 in 4, which is 26% of people in the United States living in communities. Disability affects more than 1 billion people worldwide. According to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, people with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory, such as hearing or vision impairments, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. People with disabilities experience significant disadvantages when it comes to health, such as adults with disabilities are 3 times more likely to have heart disease, stroke, diabetes, or cancer than adults without disabilities. Adults with disabilities are more likely than adults without disabilities to be current smokers. And women with disabilities are less likely than women without disabilities to have received a breast cancer X-ray test, a mammogram, during the past 2 years. Although disability is associated with health conditions such as arthritis, mental or emotional conditions, or events such as injuries, the functioning, health, independence, and engagement in society of people with disabilities can vary depending on several factors. So those factors could include the severity of the underlying impairment, social, political, and cultural influences and expectations, aspects of natural and built surroundings, availability of assistive technology and devices, and family and community support and engagement. Disability inclusion means understanding the relationship between the people, the way the people function, and how they participate in society, and making sure everyone has the same opportunities to participate in every aspect of life to the best of their abilities and desires. So let's pause for a minute and think about the ways in which we can make the world more inclusive for the disability community. Now, I'm also going to read a passage from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission as it talks about disability discrimination in the workplace and why it's important for us to create in a more inclusive environment for people who identify with that community. It says that disability discrimination occurs when an employer or other entity covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended or the Rehabilitation Act as amended treats a qualified individual who is an employee or applicant unfavorably because he or she has a disability. Disability discrimination also occurs when a covered employer or other entity treats an applicant or employee less favorably because he or she has a history of a disability, such as a past major depressive episode, or because he or she is believed to have a physical or mental impairment that is not transitory, or in other words, lasting or expected to last 6 months or less, and minor, even if he or she does not have such an impairment. The law requires an employer to provide reasonable accommodation to an employee or job applicant with a disability, unless doing so would cause significant difficulty or expense for the employer, which is considered to be undue hardship. The law also protects people from discrimination based on their relationship with a person with a disability, even if they do not have a disability themselves. For example, it is illegal to discriminate against an employee because her husband has a disability. This is just an example. There are one of many. But in work situations, it states that the law forbids discrimination when it comes to any aspect of employment, including hiring, firing, pay, job assignments, promotions, layoff, training, fringe benefits, and any other term or condition of employment. It is illegal to harass an applicant or employee because he or she has a disability, had a disability in the past, or is believed to have a physical or mental impairment that is not transitory and minor. Harassment can include, for example, offensive remarks about a person's disability. Although the law doesn't prohibit simple teasing, offhand comments, or isolated incidents that aren't very serious, harassment is illegal when it is so frequent or severe that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment, or when it results in an adverse employment decision, such as the victim being fired or demoted. The harasser can be the victim's supervisor, a supervisor in another area, a coworker, or someone who is not an employee of the employer, such as a client or a customer. So disability discrimination and reasonable accommodation. It says that the law requires an employer to provide reasonable accommodations to employees and job applicants with a disability, unless doing so would cause significant difficulty or expense for the employer. So some of that I've already covered, but it says that reasonable accommodation might include, for example, making the workplace accessible for wheelchair users, or providing a reader or interpreter for someone who is blind or hearing impaired. While the federal anti-discrimination laws don't require an employee to accommodate an employee because he or she must care for a family member with a disability, the Family Medical Leave Act may require an employer to take such steps. So I'm going to pause right there for a minute and look at another passage from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Since Mr. Powell is a mathematician that's going to be joining us for the second half of the show, he's going to share with us about how he's been able to build his career as a mathematician and as an entrepreneur. And he's also going to share his story about him being diagnosed with cerebral palsy and how he's been able to navigate through many obstacles in order to achieve success and to accomplish great things. But I want to read an article from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that talks about how to become a mathematician or statistician. So it says that mathematicians typically do the following. It says that they decide what data are needed to answer specific questions or problems. They apply mathematical theories and techniques to solve practical problems in business, engineering, the sciences, and other fields. They design surveys, experiments, or opinion polls to collect data. They develop mathematical or statistical models to analyze data, interpret data, and communicate analysis to technical and non-technical audiences. They use statistical software to analyze data and create visualizations to aid decision-making in business. So if we think about what it means to be a mathematician, we have to think about math from a broad standpoint. We have to think about how that has an impact on everything that we do. So it says that mathematicians, they can work in colleges and universities. They can also work in various forms of government. They can also work in the healthcare industry, and they also conduct a lot of research and development. So typically mathematicians, it says that they work on teams with specialists to solve problems. So for example, they may work with chemists, material scientists, or chemical engineers to analyze the effectiveness of a new drug. And that's just an example. But at all levels of government, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it says that these data help to inform policy proposals and decisions that affect the public. In the healthcare industry, it says that mathematicians work in pharmaceutical companies, public health agencies, or hospitals, and that they may design studies to test whether drugs successfully treat diseases or medical conditions. They may also help identify the sources of outbreaks of illnesses in humans and animals. In colleges and at universities, it says that mathematicians that work in post-secondary schools may study theoretical or abstract concepts in these fields. They identify, research, and work to resolve unexplained issues in mathematics and explore mathematical or statistical theories to increase knowledge and understanding about the field. So we have to think about math, again, from a broad standpoint, and we have to think about how math has an impact on everything that we do. We need math for some portion of our lives and in some form or another. I mean, we need mathematicians in order to solve the problems that we don't know how to solve. We need mathematicians to figure out things that we can't figure out. So when we think about mathematicians that work in colleges, at universities, in the healthcare industry, or even when they're conducting research, or when they're developing new ideas for new proposals that they may discuss with their colleagues in different fields, in various points in their career, they have to think about the best way to solve problems, and they have to think about how to analyze data in the most effective way they can. So I know that everybody's not a math person, including myself. I know that a lot of people struggle with math, but I know that for me, the basics, adding and subtracting, and even multiplying and dividing, those are the simple things. But we're talking about mathematicians knowing math from a broad standpoint. We're talking about mathematicians that know how to solve problems. We're talking about the mathematicians that present findings from their analysis and discuss the data limitations and knowing how to interpret things. We're talking about those mathematicians. We're talking about mathematicians that know how to present written reports, tables, and charts to team members, clients, and everyone they work with. And it says, the article from the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that to solve problems, mathematicians rely on statisticians to design surveys, questionnaires, experiments, and opinion polls for collecting the data they need. For most surveys and polls, mathematicians gather data from some people in a particular group, and they determine the type and size of the sample for collecting data in the survey or poll. So again, when we think about this from a broad perspective, we have to think about how statistics is a different form of math that's used for polls and for different data in order to analyze and interpret data in different forms. Has anybody ever taken a statistics course in college or in high school? Whenever you take a statistics course in college or in high school, you have a better understanding of what that looks like. So when we talk to Mr. Powell, I'm definitely going to ask him about not only what he does as a mathematician and his capacity, but I also want to know the steps that he took in order to get there. Now, he is, his alma mater is the University of Maryland, College Park, and he received his Bachelor's of Science degree in mathematics from there. Now, I do want to know how he was able to conquer that, because I know that that takes a lot of hard work and sacrifice. So for the educational needs, it says that students who are interested in becoming mathematicians or statisticians should take as many math courses as possible in high school. For jobs with the federal government, candidates need at least a bachelor's degree in mathematics or significant coursework in mathematics. In private industry, mathematicians need either a master's or a doctoral degree. Most colleges and universities have a bachelor's program in mathematics. Courses usually include calculus, differential equations, and linear and abstract algebra. Mathematics students also commonly take courses in related fields such as computer science, physics, or statistics. Many universities offer master's and doctoral degrees in theoretical or applied mathematics. Students who get a doctoral degree may work as professors of mathematics in a college or university. And statisticians typically need a master's degree, but some entry-level positions may accept candidates with a bachelor's degree. So when we talk about advancement, the article provides a substantial amount of information about how mathematicians can advance and how statisticians can advance. So it says that mathematicians and statisticians may advance to become senior mathematicians or statisticians, or to work in other managerial roles. A master's or doctoral degree may be required for some advancement opportunities. So again, when we think about mathematicians and statisticians, we have to think about how important of a role that they play in the workplace and in many areas of our lives. Now, everybody's not a math person, and that's fine. All of us may not be math people. All of us may not have the ability to solve equations, or we may not have the ability to figure out everything. We may not know everything that's related to geometry, trigonometry, calculus, or all of the other courses. We may not be an expert at those, but we always have someone who is, and we always have the people, the individuals who are, to look to and to turn to whenever we have questions that we are unable to answer, or whenever we're struggling with problems that we're doing our best to solve. So when we talk to Mr. Powell for the second half of the show, I'm going to ask him about that. I'm going to ask him about how being a mathematician helps other people, how it helps his colleagues and his clients that he works with solve problems that they have. And when we talk about the disability community, I'm going to have a conversation with him about how we can support the disability community as well. And when we think about all of our math majors in college, and when we think about all of our students who excel in mathematics, even though math for some people is not a popular subject, it's still relevant and important it makes a difference for people who are interested in mathematics and who are interested in pursuing a career in mathematics, because it's always going to be essential. And it's always going to be essential to some field, some career field. So I just want all of us to think about that and consider how important it really is, even though we may sometimes overlook these courses and we sometimes underestimate how important these courses are. We can definitely look at it from another perspective. And when we talk about the definition of a disability, as we shift from the conversations between what it means to be a mathematician or statistician, and what it means to represent the disability community, and what it means to live with a disability, we have to think about these subjects from a broad standpoint. We have to think about these subjects. We have to think outside the box, because it's such an abstract way of thinking when we talk about these two subjects. We have to speak to people who identify as members of the disability community. We have to talk with math majors and people who are interested in pursuing a career in math, and people who are members of the disability community, so that we can know what it's like, and so we can figure out how to support them in the best way that we can, and how we can get as much education that we need in order to help them as much as we can, so that they can fulfill the dreams that they desire and what they want. It says that the CDC, according to the CDC, it says that disability impacts us all. It says that 2 in 5 adults aged 65 years or older have a disability, and 2 in 5 non-Hispanic American Indians, Alaska Natives have a disability. And it says that when it comes to disability in the healthcare industry, it says that 1 in 3 adults with disabilities aged between the ages of 18 and 44 do not have a usual healthcare provider. 1 in 3 have an unmet healthcare need because of the cost in the past year. and 1 in 4 adults with disabilities between the ages of 45 and 64 do not have a routine checkup who have not had a routine checkup in the past year. So when we make a difference, the CDC talks about how we can make a difference in the healthcare industry and in different industries when it comes to providing a reasonable accommodation for people who identify, men and women, and even children who identify as members of the disability community. It says that improving the access to healthcare, building inclusive health programs, researching and reducing health disparities, monitoring the public health data, and promoting healthy living. Those are all examples of how we can support and encourage people who identify in those communities. It says that the percentage of adults with functional disability types, according to the CDC, it says that 13.7% of people with a disability have a mobility disability with serious difficulty walking or climbing stairs. It says that 10.8% of people with a disability have a cognition of disability with serious difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions. 6.8% of people have a disability, who with a disability have an independent living disability with difficulty doing errands alone. 5.9% of people with a disability are deaf or have serious difficulty hearing. 4.6% of people with a disability have a vision disability with blindness or serious difficulty seeing, even when wearing glasses. And 3.6% of people with a disability have a self-care disability with difficulty dressing or bathing. So again, when we talk about this, we are going to think about this from a broad standpoint, and we are going to shift gears in a minute, and we're going to talk about how we can support this community and uplift this community as these individuals, all of the men, women, and children who identify with this community, how we can encourage them and support them in their dreams. So I'm going to bring Mr. Powell on the show. So I'm very, very glad that I've had the opportunity to meet Mr. Christopher Powell. And I want to give a big shout out to Miss Mari Mitchell for making this connection happen. Again, Mr. Powell, thanks again for being a part of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to the listeners about all of the great stuff that you have to share this evening.
My pleasure. I'm so honored to be with you, Nelson. It was a pleasure speaking with you last week for a couple minutes, and so I'm inspired by what you're doing, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks again. I do appreciate you. Now, I know that when we had a conversation last week about how you've gotten to where you are and how you've been able to become a mathematician, an entrepreneur, and how you've been able to accomplish all of the things that you've accomplished throughout your career and even in your personal life as you've been able to navigate through all of your obstacles. Do you mind sharing with the listeners a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Once again, thank you. My name is Chris Powell, and I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. As you mentioned, I'm a speaker, mathematician, entrepreneur. And I was born with cerebral palsy. It's a neurological condition, and it affects my hands and legs and my speech at times. Basically, I have a hard time trying to get my muscles to relax. So I may have an idea of what I want to do, but my body has its own idea of what it does. So it's kind of a challenge, and it's kind of like you're fighting against yourself. But well, as a toddler, the chances of me walking or talking were very, very slim. I could walk a little bit as a child, but I had very, very hard time maintaining my balance. So I would take a lot of falls. And as I mentioned, I had trouble using my hands, so I had to have people, my mom and my aunt, dress me and help me feed me, and just help me with all daily activities, but fortunately, I was able to, go to school and went through special education and went through high school, and I was, very successful, even though my inability to write. And I guess my teachers in high school realized that I had the capability of going to college, and I just continued through there. So it's, it's been a process, but overall, I'm very thankful for the chances to, just learn how to deal with this condition.
Oh, yes, you shared with me a lot about you know, your disability and all of the things that you've been able to accomplish in spite of all of the obstacles that you had been through over the course of your personal life, and how that plays a major role in what you do professionally. So I shared during the first half of the show, I did share a lot with the listeners about the ways in which we can uplift the disability community and support the members of the disability community, and everything that they want to accomplish, and how sometimes we don't really think about things that don't really affect us. People who don't identify with that community, a lot of us don't really understand what it's like to live, every day with all of those challenges. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about like what made you want to become a mathematician, because like I've never met, you're my very first person that I've ever met who's a mathematician. I've never met anybody who's a mathematician before in my life. I've learned about them growing up in school, and I've learned about people who are just extremely proficient in mathematics. I know people who are, but I've never ever met a mathematician before. So, what made you wake up one day and decide, I want to be a mathematician?
Well, I again thank you very much for that wonderful compliment. Um, Basically, because of my condition, I have problems, and I was always in search of solutions to my challenges. So, math gave me opportunity to find solutions to problems. In class, like junior high school, I really enjoyed, trying to solve problems. And at some point, I realized, I said to myself, if I can find solutions to problems in mathematics, maybe, just maybe, I can find solutions to my condition, at least step by step. And that's what kind of led me to become a mathematician. And another thing that helped me with mathematics was that it was a release. It gave me an opportunity to not worry about my disability as much. I got a chance to kind of get away and focus on things that I could do. And that's the wonderful thing about math was that I really enjoyed and loved what I was doing, even though it was challenging at times. But it gave me opportunity to reach for something like a goal. And that's what kept me going. And I decided early in college, I said, well, I might as well just go ahead and become a mathematician. In my early stages at college, I had success with a couple classes that I took, and my teachers were very encouraging, and they really, encouraged me to continue. So that thought got into my head. Now, granted, I knew I had a mountain to climb because there were a lot of classes that I had to take. So at the same time, I was very happy about being a math major, but I knew that the road was not going to be easy. So I was ready to take on the challenges, the ups and downs, to get to eventually where I wanted to, was that walking down the aisle and receiving my degree.
Yes, yes, it's very, very inspiring to hear because, like I said before, I don't I don't, like I said, you're my very first person that I met, who is a mathematician. And I know that that's an exceptional talent that many people like yourself have, because a lot of people overlook math, and they don't a lot of people overlook math and they don't really think about making a career out of it. A lot of people don't think of math as being a career that they want to pursue. So again, because you're so gifted and talented in mathematics, that helps out a lot of people who struggle in that area, because um, because you mentioned that it was definitely an outlet for you. It was a release for you. Your way to figure out how to solve problems and how to interpret things in a much better fashion. So it's definitely inspiring to hear. So could you tell us a little bit about what entrepreneurship means to you, and how you've been able to establish a business for yourself as a mathematician, pursuing what you're pursuing?
Well, being an entrepreneur to me is a wonderful opportunity to share your gifts with the world. And also, the thing that inspires me about being an entrepreneur is that you may have an idea that you want to develop. And through a lot of hard work, creative thinking, and critical thinking, which is relating to math, um, at some point, I was able to come up with the idea of um, creating my own, a small business. And it's been, like I mentioned, it's been a struggle, but I've been very fortunate and blessed to acquire two LLCs. And I have one that's called Mastery Experts, and that's like an online tutoring company. And I'm now trying to focus on assisting students in junior high and high school. I also have a company called Reaching New Heights, and that is a motivational speaking coaching program. And that basically is more motivational and trying to assist my clients with their issues and giving them, advice and resources that they could possibly use to help their lives.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and again, that's a gift that is exceptional, because a lot of people, and like you said, entrepreneurship, it's always been about using your gifts to help others, exercising that creative outlet that you have and those creative muscles you have to make a difference in someone else's life. It's not just about fulfilling your own needs or your own desires. It's about serving others in that same capacity, and you've had the privilege of doing that for so long. And again, it's very inspiring to listen to the story and to hear your story and to see how far you've come, and how much hard work and dedication it took for you to get to where you are today. So my next question is, how important is it to represent the disability community with the work that you do every day? Because a lot of people tend to look at their circumstances or themselves and may feel inadequate because of who they are, or what they have. So what is your message to the disability community, and how are you making a difference, and what's your overall objective of you know being that role model and that representation for the disability community with the work that you do?
Well, I take it very hardly. I first would like to just kind of piggyback a little bit on some of the emotions that I've gone through, and the pain that I've had to, deal with this condition. And I would like to just say that it's very, very, it can be very challenging trying to um, understand or convey what is going on with your life and why you have these challenges. And it took me a long time to understand and to accept what it was. Even though I was very, very, ambitious, and people could see my enthusiasm and my desire on the inside, it was a major struggle. And at times it still is today, because there are a lot of questions that you have about your own, mission in life, and why you have this situation. But overall, I would just say that one thing that I try to convey is the ability, and that's the main thing I try to convey, and that and try to concentrate on things that you can do. And one thing that I would say is that for the disability community is I would just give my experiences is that to find your gift and talent and just dive into what you love. I mean, there are things that I couldn't do or couldn't control, and like I mentioned, they're very painful, and at times they still are today. But the one thing I realized is also as a globe, at some point in time, we all of us are gonna have some kind of pain or some type of challenge in our lives. Now, for me, I had that challenge as a very, very early age. But we all, at some point, if we, carry on in this life long enough, we're gonna have some pain. We're gonna have some kind of setback. So we all have our challenges, and that's the thing I've learned. So that, having said that, it made me kind of see a wider lens about life. So I would just again reiterate to the disability community and to anybody that's listening is that find your gifts, find your talents, and pursue them, and love what you do, and try to minimize the things that irritate and bother you because that we all have things, whether it's seen or unseen, that we may not desire about ourselves, and that's part of life.
Yes, and I definitely understand you when you talk about that, and when you talk about, um, staying motivated, and keep staying encouraged, and pursuing your dreams, and regardless of what the obstacles look like, and what your circumstances may look like, because even though you may have challenges, that's what overcoming those challenges and reaching your goals and setting goals and accomplishing what you set out to accomplish, you feel better about yourself once you do, you follow through with everything that all of the promises that you make for yourself, all of the things that you start and you finish, and all of the persistence that you display. It gets recognized. And again, you feel better about yourself when you do go after your dreams and when you do accomplish what you set out to accomplish, even in spite of all of the obstacles. And that's what makes us stronger. And that's the beauty of everything. That we have the opportunity to pursue our goals and to stay persistent and to stay motivated, regardless of what the obstacles look like, because that's what makes us stronger. Sometimes when we're going through those circumstances, we may not understand what it may look like, and what the purpose of that is. But once we're able to come out on the other side of it, we can definitely recognize how strong we are, how the strength in all of that, and how much we are able to endure, and how much we are able to, you know, how much we are able to, succeed, in the midst of everything. So, my next question is, what advice would you give to young people who are interested in pursuing a career in entrepreneurship or mathematics? Because I know that a lot of young people who are interested in entrepreneurship, a lot of them may not understand the ins and outs of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I don't know any math majors personally, but I do know that there are math majors who are interested in pursuing a career in mathematics. And I know that mathematicians can work in a variety of settings. A lot of them work at colleges, at universities. They can work for different forms of government or even for private employers. So could you tell us a little bit about entrepreneurship, what it takes, and also what it takes to be a mathematician in terms of where you see yourself?
Sure. Um, First, I'd just like to piggyback on what you just mentioned about coming out on the other side. That is so, so true, Nelson. The one blessing I've had is that going through my struggles with my condition and learning about how to be creative and finding ways of learning how to do things is priceless. And I'm so thankful that you made that point because that also is a kind of a segue to your question you just asked me about um, entrepreneurship and mathematics. Um, I basically would say to the listeners is that for young people that want to become mathematicians is stay persistent and be determined. Mathematics can be very, very challenging. I mean, I went through a lot of courses in my college career, and I got some bumps. It was not a bed of roses by any stretch of imagination. But it was extremely challenging. But again, with the parallel with disability challenges and coming out on the other side being stronger, that also was mathematics because once I got to my coursework, um, I was like, hey man, I got this. It's not, whatever life throws at me, I'm like, I may not be able to, totally, conquer, but I can think my way through it. And the same is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship takes persistence. It takes collaboration. You need to have great coaches and colleagues that I have and friends that are with you and that can be with you and inspire you and help you through those times. It takes just a lot, like I mentioned, a lot of determination, the willingness not to give up, and it takes, I guess, I would say, you have to kind of continue to develop your ideas. Your first idea in year one may not be the same idea in year six. It's taken me a long time to develop my business. I'm still working on today. But the thing that I always would mention to the listeners is that when you love what you do, the pain is secondary. The love is primary. So when you love what you do, no matter how challenging it may be, you'll stick with it.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, and that's definitely something to say to a lot of young people like myself, because a lot of us we want to get to a place where we are successful, but a lot of us don't understand all of the challenges and the obstacles that come our way. And like you said, in order to be an entrepreneur, and if you want to pursue a career in mathematics, just like you have to, like you said, stay persistent, and you have to have a nice network of people, of mentors and people who are experts in the field to mold you and to guide you so that you can become so you can continue on the road to success. Because a lot of people who are very prideful tend to think that they can handle everything on their own and that they don't need anybody else's help. And come to find out, sometimes they learn the hard way that, things are not always what they crack up to be. And everything's not rainbows and sunshine, and everything's not going to go the way you anticipate all the time. So it's very important for all of us to have mentors and to have the people who are experts in that field. And it's important to listen and to take heed to what they have to say, because they've most likely been through the obstacles, they've been through the challenges, and they've experienced what you've experienced. The mentorship and the guidance is for you, and that's why it's important for people to listen and for young people to understand that having mentors and staying persistent, that's what makes you a leader, and that's what molds you as a leader, in your field and even in your personal life, not just professionally, but personally. It makes you a better person. So I know that we've all experienced challenges in some way or another throughout the pandemic, between all of the restrictions that have been implemented throughout the course of the 16 to 18 months that we've been a part of this pandemic. So what has the pandemic taught you throughout the course of the year, the year and a half we've all been going through this?
Well, I would definitely, would say that during this pandemic, humility. Um, One thing that I've learned is that inner strength to get through each day. Uh, I've learned that to have the resiliency to and the desire, basically, even to want to live, because that year, and even still today, on some levels, can be very challenging. So again, it's all about how you perceive a situation. Um, I think again during this time, um, you can learn a lot about yourself. You can learn about your strengths and your weaknesses, and you can learn about how to overcome those. Um, Very, very important to have that connection with your family and friends. It's just important, like I said, to keep your eyes on your goal and to just continue to strive for what you believe in.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been asking my guests, that question, throughout the course of the entire time I've been doing this. I've been doing the show for almost a year now, and I've been asking all of my guests that because I think that the pandemic, it's forced most of us outside of our comfort zone, and it's forced all of us to think about things differently. Because family and friends, just like you mentioned, having a great network of people to turn to in your time of need, and even for support and encouragement. That's it's very important, and it's always been important. But I think that the pandemic, by us having the pandemic, it's made us realize how important it really is, because a lot of us have been accustomed to just living our lives and doing our own thing, and we don't. Sometimes we take that for granted, and we don't really cherish it sometimes the way we probably need to or are supposed to. A lot of us we've just been accustomed to just living our lives and moving forward in our careers, and just trying so hard to just make it by ourselves. But it took for the pandemic for us to realize how important having that network of people, that family and the friends that you have, the mentors, the coaches, and everybody who plays a role into who you are and what your life looks like. That's what's really important. And I know that everybody, it's been really, really challenging for a lot of people, and it's really, really important. My last question before we end the show for the evening is, how can people connect with you directly? People who are interested in learning more about you and about your business and about your work as a mathematician and entrepreneur. How can people get in touch with you directly if they want to learn more about that?
Well, again, thank you, Nelson. I can be contacted. I have my websites are overcomeyourlimits.com. Currently having a slight little glitch problem, but if you want to reach me by email, you can contact me at info@overcomeyourlimits.com. And I also have my other website, which is mathtutoringexperts.com. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. Eventually, I have an Instagram account, but definitely I'd say Facebook, Twitter. And like I said, the main thing is just to contact me by email at info@overcomeyourlimits.com. That's the fastest way.
Yes, thank you, and thanks again for appearing on my show this evening. Your story definitely inspired me, and I know that the listeners were inspired by your story and everything that you had to speak about tonight. And it definitely broadens our points of view about you know people like yourself, and how we can all up support you and encourage you, and create a more inclusive environment, for you all. So, and again, you've accomplished so many more things. And my last question is, what are some of the upcoming events? Before I let you go, what are some of the upcoming events that you have, for your business that you'd like to promote before I let you go?
Thanks. Well, I have an upcoming book that will be published most likely next year, and it's called Overcoming Challenges in the Four Phases of Life. And this is volume one, and I did a compilation of interviews with African American leaders, and basically the book represents the four stages of development as an entrepreneur, which is getting started. So second is low point. Third point is plateau, and fourth point is reinvention. So I created a series of questions around four of those topics. I asked different guests about their experiences. So that book should be available in 2022. So I'm looking forward to that. So um, thank you, Nelson.
Yes. Well, thanks again. I'm going to let you go, but I'd like to thank you again for, appearing on my broadcast and for sharing your story. And again, I know that the listeners felt, inspired by what you had to share, and they felt inspired by everything that you've had to bring to the table, and just how talented, how talented they were able to see your gifts and all of your talents, and everything that you've had to offer. You've accomplished so much, and you've been through so much, and it's really, really nice to see that you are where you are, and that the resilience and the passion and the persistence has been there, and and that's helped you along the way. So thanks again.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes. 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 So you're free to go. I'm going to close out the show, but again, I thank you again.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So that wraps up another edition of the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. Now, before I close out the show, I want to make a few announcements to you guys. I want to let you all know that we are still in the middle of summer, so I'm going to still work on. I have a few things that I've been working on for the summer. I've been, throughout the course of the pandemic, I've been able to write a lot, and I've been able to jot down a lot of my thoughts, and I've been able to generate a lot of ideas in terms of what I have to share for the fourth volume of the book. So it's definitely great for all of you all to know that I definitely have more things in store for the future, and I've definitely been able to just learn more about myself through each therapy session and through each devotion that I've committed myself to reading and writing down and learning about. I've definitely been able to learn and grow from that, and to experience new things for the better. So I want you all to make an appointment to meet me back here on July 20th, Tuesday, July 20th, from 6 to 7 p.m. I'm still trying to figure out who the guest is going to be for next week, but I do have some things in store for the following weeks. I'm trying to get things together for the fall, so I have a couple of other amazing guests that are going to be featured on the Beauty in Us Radio, right here on Awesome God Radio. So again, this is definitely been a great opportunity for you all to learn about me and about the work that I do as an author and as a radio personality. It's been almost a year since I've had my broadcast, and it's been a year since I've since I've started this show, and I've had the opportunity to meet so many amazing people and learn so many things. So I encourage you all to go back and listen to all of my broadcasts and all of my shows that I've done with so many amazing guests, because each and every one of my guests is special. Each and every one of my guests, they all have talents. They all have gifts that they have shared with the world. They all have obstacles that they've faced, and they all endure challenges along the way. But the beauty in everything is that they've been able to come out on the other side of it stronger and resilient, more resilient than ever. So again, make an appointment to meet me back here on Tuesday, July 20th of 2021 from 6 to 7 p.m. I'm still trying to figure out, who the guest is going to be and if I'm going to have a guest for next week. So again, I appreciate you all. I thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Awesome God Radio. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of the other social media outlets. And you could follow me at Nelson E. Brown on all of the social media outlets as well. Again, this is Nelson E. Brown from the Beauty in Us Radio, and I will see you next week. Thanks again.